we shared together. Kim, Becky, or John, do you have any opening words for us?
Good afternoon, and I look forward to really engaging with everyone now that we've had some time to reflect on our sessions, perhaps pilot some implementation or identify ways that we might need to better scaffold or hone certain applications for our particular demographics. So outside of that, thank you for attending.
Thank you, John. Let's start with one of the techniques that I really appreciated learning in a session during Summer Summit that was about socio-emotional learning and trauma-informed practices in the classroom was an emotional check-in. And this is one that I came across online. I beg your pardon because the words are a little bit blurry and I wasn't able to get them clearer, but you'll be able to get the idea that on the, what is this? This is vertical. On the vertical, there is energy, and on the horizontal, you see pleasantness. And the colors designate certain types of moods. And I would invite you to consider, how are you feeling today?
I find it intriguing because I use the word thrilled. How are you? Oh, thrilled. It's thrilled, you know, all the time. And I'm like, I didn't realize where that was. Obviously, I'm being facetious.
Sarcastic, is that one of the feelings on here? I don't know, Kim. So you could articulate feeling by word or by color, and anyone is welcome to share. Or you can put it in the chat. Today I've been feeling a little bit tense because of different timelines that I really want to honor, and feeling that tension of time. So I'm an orange. I'm kind of orange today. But now I feel yellow. I feel pleased because I get to see all of you. That helps put me at ease in the midst of the tension. What about you, Becky? How do you feel?
You know, it's interesting that you say that, Laura, because I was just going through and kind of thinking, like, how do I feel? Like right in this moment, I think I'm kind of at the thoughtful point, but throughout the day, like I was concerned about some things this morning. I was irritated about some things a little later in the day. You know, I have shifted, I think, through many of the colors throughout the day to day. So, but I like the idea of the exercise of being a little more mindful about where you are in your feelings at different points during your day, because I do think that we, you know, at the end of the day, you stop and think, was this a good day? Was it not a good day? All of them have all of those pieces in them. So yeah, I've kind of gone through the color wheel today.
Is there some irony with annoyed and pleased being right next to each other? I think that's a little weird.
That is interesting. Something about the energies being similar. Pleased being maybe a more pleasant energy than annoyed.
I like that sentiment where I'd almost like to see some ombre, some gray to blue, gray to red, gray to yellow ombre that could give us some indifference between some of those quadrants, right? Between the pleased and annoyed, there might just be indifference. But anyway, yeah, this is, I think two of our English language learners who, we asked them to identify nonverbal cues and facial expressions and do certain emotions have words in their native tongue, or do they similarly express? I think this is a really neat exercise in a lot of on multiple levels.
Yes, I agree, John. I had the opportunity to revisit one of our summer summit sessions this past week. I invited one of our presenters back on the topic of self-care, building resilience through having a self-care plan. And I was reminded there of how valuable it is to check in with each other and check in with our teams within our programs. And it's asking that simple question of how are you and how can I support you can make a huge difference. Thank you to everybody who put your feelings in the chat. We have some very expressive adjectives here. Ooh, and someone needs a mood ring. Yes. John. Oh, uneasy. Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for sharing those. Fantastic. So this also ties into learning. Their research shows us that giving students time to check in with how they feel and how we do that can really range. If we're working with English language learners or native English speaking adults, it can look different. There are some fun modalities of this activity, including the sheep scale that some of us have seen a few times, that has really humorous renditions of sheep with different expressions, leaping through the air or feeling like they're flat on the ground, for example, or the emotional weather report, which you can do with a Jamboard if you utilize that type of technology and have people add either words or images of types of weather to express how they're feeling. So some might enjoy that metaphorical activity.
As a person who doesn't like to deal with people's emotions a lot, I don't like to ask something that then I think that they may feel I need to be accountable for addressing.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point, Kim. Mm-hmm. I really try to remember to practice the fix it or feel it, not so much in the classroom, but personally, to recognize, and then friends of mine are good at telling me, I'm not asking you to fix this. I just need to tell someone I'm feeling this way. And that's a fantastic skill to have, but one that I truly am still working on, because we can feel like problem solvers, but sometimes I have friends that just need to be heard. You just feel lonely. I'm not asking you to change anything or do anything. I'm feeling upset.
Yeah, we have a few staff people who will call me and just ask, do you have a few minutes? And I say yes, and say, I don't think I need you to do anything. I just need to talk about this. And it's that same kind of thing. I just need to talk this through, or I just need to get this out because it's bothering me. And I always appreciate when they tell me that, because otherwise I instantly go into, how can I fix this? What can I do to help them? And if they don't want me to do that or need me to do that, I so appreciate being told up front, like, just listen, maybe give some sympathy or empathy, but I don't need you to fix this problem. I just need to let it out.
Right. And I know within my team, they're very supportive of each other. So if they know that one of their peers is having a rough day, or they're feeling pressed for time, they really try to support each other. And I know your staff are super supportive. Our staff across the state are pretty incredible people. I'm trying to advance the slide. Here we go. Oh, too far. Yes, okay. Today we'll take some time to reflect on learning. And these are a few of the questions that I invite you to ponder. I will do a very brief activity that allows us to think specifically about sessions that we experienced, activities that we experienced at Summer Summit. But before we do that, I want to give you a forecast that will be entertaining these questions. What learning and experiences stuck with you? What made your learning stick? What applications have you made so far? And how will you begin to or continue to apply those insights moving forward? You need not answer all of these questions, but you get to choose from these options as we continue our discussion today. So here is our activity. I ask you to find a piece of paper and a utensil. Something to write with. And I will share with you some images, a few reminders from Summer Summit. And I invite you to challenge yourself, take note of 1 or 2 topics from each slide that still speak to you from the conference. I really appreciate opportunities like this to look back because I feel our learning is so much a use it or lose it. And there's so much that was invested in us at our summer conference. We definitely want to be able to retain those investments, especially in those areas that really still speak to you. So what are 1 or 2 topics from this snippet, and just write down the name of that topic. Now, these are somewhat abbreviated from the titles that we had from our presenters. But choose 1 or 2 of these that still speak to you. And I'll give you a few quiet moments to do that. You ready for the next slide? Okay. Here is slide 2, Thursday review. This is the first part of Thursday. Thursday was a big day. So choose 1 or 2 of these topics that are still speaking to you today from Summer Summit. Thursday was a big day. Here's slide 3. And yes, I included the cornhole tournament because it was very eventful. I did learn better cornhole skills from that activity. I don't know about you, but I did. And Friday, See if you can write 1 or 2 topics that still speak to you. Okay. Now, I invite you to choose at least one of those highlights and share your response to one or more of the questions below. What stuck with you? Why did it stick for you? What applications have you already made in that area in your program? And or how will you apply that moving forward? Of course, you have access to the chat, but we'd love to hear your voices.
Okay, since nobody's talking, I'm gonna talk. Couple of them. The poverty one for me was, even though you know some of these things, you don't know these things. And I've been doing, I feel I have been doing a better job of rethinking my knee-jerk reactions to situations that our clients we end up dealing with because it's something their clients did. So I'm trying to look at that from a different lens. So I think that really helped there. The other one that I thought was that I've heard a lot about, and I keep forgetting to mention it too, is the session on Friday with the Nikita session. I've had several people ask for more training in that. So apparently that's a subject area that it's packaged in such a way that obviously people are starting to relate it better to their classroom. So kudos to you, Nikita, for intriguing people to want to learn more.
My internet's cutting in and out a bit, but that's exciting. I'm happy to hear that other people are excited about it.
Okay, I'll go second. Of course, poverty and emotional, those two kind of set in together with me. Especially for our students, which you're never sure exactly where they're at in that poverty level, or also as they're dealing with that, where's their emotions coming into that. But I wanted to, because just like Kim, sometimes I can't fix what's going on the outside, but I wanted to bring some words into our classroom. So we're learning words like I'm confident, or I'm confused, or I'm curious, so that gives them a voice to ask more about situations. Maybe if they want help, they can ask me about that, or if they're feeling confident about something that we're learning, that it can go there. And then of course in the leadership part, that was about gratitude, just always expressing the gratitude. So that's the two things that I've been using in my classroom.
Diana, that's awesome, because you talk to students, you say, how are you doing? Good, teacher. They don't know how to express, even if they're having a really bad day. So to spend more time with that vocabulary, I think it'd really help a lot of our students.
Yeah, just gives them some new words, and they're excited. They're starting to really use it in the classroom, so it's exciting to see it.
I can talk about one that I wrote down. The GED writing, I teach a reading and social studies class to GED prep students. And I learned so much from the GED writing session, and some of them were things that I actually knew as a writing teacher, but it made me start to think of ways that I can incorporate writing into what I'm already teaching. So I feel like that's one that is going to have a lasting impact on my instruction.
Jeremy, was that with Steve Schmidt?
Yes.
All
Yep.
right, very good.
Jeremy, was there something like an example of something that you could share from the writing session?
Sure.
Sometimes those reminders mean a lot. You said that you already knew, but sometimes we need to revisit that.
Yeah. So for example, just the idea of having students do a quick write and, giving them a few minutes to write down their thoughts and not worry about, spelling and grammar and those sorts of things, but just to get their thoughts on the page and then go around and share what they've learned either by unmuting or in the chat. That's one thing that I've definitely taken with me and I've been trying to use in my class.
Thank you, Jeremy.
And Jeremy, to unpack that a bit further, do you, and maybe it varies class to class or depending upon the dynamic, but do you explicitly sort of reinforce the notion that this is an aspect or facet of writing where we're just creating or brainstorming, we're writing for main ideas, we're trying to get some of your thoughts onto paper so you can almost use it as a prompt, or are you more focused on giving them the opportunity to write without that, hypersensitive concern to spelling, punctuation, grammar, and mechanics?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I am one to verbalize like the benefits of doing everything that we do in that class. And so I try not to make it to the point where they feel like they're doing work. But I do try to verbalize the connection between doing something like that and the impact that it can ultimately have on their writing when they go on to respond to something like the extended response, on the GED test. But also how it can help them work through things and kind of get their thoughts down. And so I think kind of a combination of both, but I definitely try to, verbalize how it can help them so that they know that they're doing something that's meaningful. Did that answer your question, John?
Perfectly answered, Jeremy.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I'm going to mention cornhole, not because I learned any great cornhole skills, but because I have come to value that social time that we have with one another. When even on our own staff, when we speak to one another, it's so often about work. And we don't have a ton of time for socializing and just relaxing and spending time and visiting about different things. So I really do feel that it fed into some of the other things we were talking about, about dealing with people's social emotional issues and thinking in terms of our own emotions and our own self-care, those kinds of things. Just spending that quality, relaxed time with one another, I think is very valuable, and I enjoyed it.
Thanks for sharing, Becky.
Darcy had made a comment in the chat too, Laura. I don't know if you saw that.
I did not. Yeah, Darcy, thank you for sharing that about ACEs and the reminder that traumatic childhood experiences are a factor often in the work we do with adult learners. Kim, thank you for your humor. With a nice nice image that you shared with us there in the chat. Thanks for that.
Well, and the creativity is what, not only the sense of humor that was on exhibit, but the creativity and the playful spirit that we had with the networking session in the Family Feud format. Not taking ourselves too seriously. There's still a couple of responses that Dave Baumeister made that make me giggle. So I appreciate setting the tone like that. It was a great conference, and that's largely due to everyone's attendance, participation, sharing a professional expertise, engaging with those vendors professionally and personally after hours. Sort of get out of it what you put into it, and I was very pleased. So thank you, everyone.
Is there anyone else who has a comment to share?
Excuse me, I can sort of piggyback on what Darcy said in the chat. Yeah, the ACEs session certainly hit me the hardest, and so many things about it. But I think just the idea that the very base need of anybody, including in our our personal lives, everyone, is to feel safe, which can mean loved, cared for, but safe. And that can means of not just physically safe, but emotionally safe as well. And like, if you don't feel that, you can't learn anything. You can't even maybe have a rational conversation with anyone. Nothing sticks. Whether that's students or other people in your life. So whatever you say or do, or however you want to interact with that person, that has to be there first. And if it's not, you have to go back and make sure that they feel safe and cared for. Otherwise, you're just like blah blah blah, blah 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 blah. You're just wasting your time. So that's something that hit me really hard. And that like social, even just your own facial expressions, no matter what your words are saying, if your tone of voice and if your facial expressions aren't backing that up, your words are blah blah, right? Yeah. So that hit me pretty hard.
Yeah, and Amy, I think that that also carries over like into when we had the poverty session, because I didn't realize, I mean, this is a full-time job trying to navigate, through all these different stations, so to speak, and in what order to do this and why you shouldn't do it that way and why you should do it this way. I mean, it kind of, makes me look at people that are in that situation a little bit differently. That because sometimes, you know, you read posts on social media, oh, somebody has this or that, and I'm out. And I'm thinking, you're out? You knew that yesterday that you were going to be out. You know, but now after going through all these simulated experiences, well, maybe yesterday they were in the middle of trying to get gas for their car or trying to get some food on the table. And there's just a lot of things, I think, in the background that we don't always need, we don't always realize right away. So it kind of made me think to look a little bit more behind the scenes, so to speak.
Yeah, and along with that, right, the presenter, I think in the Poverty Escape Room said that even the way they're treated at certain facilities or agencies or wherever, wherever they're going, if the reaction is disrespectful and unpleasant, even though they might need those services, they don't want to go back. They're less likely to go there. Right, which is sort of the same thing, right? Going back to people need to feel safe and cared for, and they don't want to go to places where they don't. And let's face it, so many places that you have to go, the DMV and all the places, customer service is not high on their priority list. Let's just say that,
No.
And it makes me frustrated, and I only have to do it once in a while, but I don't want to be, I can't control that, but at least I can be, even if I give them an answer that they don't like, at least I want to do it in a caring and respectful way, which I hope I was before too, but just even more so.
Yeah, exactly. And then you add on from what Amy just said, you add on somebody is doing all this who is not a native speaker of English. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare.
I'm very ever impressed with what our learners are able to accomplish and their resourcefulness. And the safety point is real. I continue to hear positive remarks from students that they enjoy coming to class. They really appreciate and feel safe with their teacher. And I don't know that it takes a great deal to be a person that they can trust, but it's so important. True that if we're in a state of heightened anxiety, we're not learning. There's a whole lot of research to back that up. So kudos to everybody for the reinforcement of your compassion and establishing trusting environments for your students. Any other comments that you had about from your reflection of the sessions?
Laura.
Is there somebody we haven't?
Laura, this is Denise, and I work in the Mitchell office here with Cornerstones. I just happened to get off for a few minutes because of one of the booths that was at our summer summit, and that was the disability rights with South Dakota. And I also, besides being an adult education teacher, I'm a employment specialist, and that was disability rights on the phone just a few minutes ago. And I have to tell you that, for me, it's all about educating, and whether I'm educating people who you know, whether I'm filling in for a GED class, I'm teaching the English language, or I'm teaching the process of job hunting and all of that. Well, as soon as I came back from the conference, I was like, I couldn't wait for my next appointment with this individual. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got to share something with you. And anyway, he understood that this is something that he had to move forward with, and that I could only be a support. So I was just being a support. And anyway, they just called me, and he does have a valid concern. And, you know, and I told them that they can call me anytime they want to, you know, so that we can continue to service people with disabilities. And then, since I'm talking, I would like to give kudos to the gentleman that taught that supporting adult learners in corrections. Oh my gosh, that was very impactful for me, because here in the Mitchell office, we've seen an increase in people coming out of the correction system. So I'm doing more GED intakes. Back when we were able to teach financial literacy, I was getting more people coming for my financial literacy classes. And that gentleman that taught that class was just so inspiring about, you know, making sure that, you know, we meet them where they are, and people make bad choices, you know, they're not bad people. And, you know, and that spoke to me quite a bit for a variety of reasons, but specifically here in the Mitchell office, you know, for all of these new people coming out of corrections, and how we get them back, and, you know, back into the workforce, back to living their full potential. And I've talked enough.
Thank you so much, Denise. Anyone else before we move to the next topic? All right, thanks everybody for sharing. The next topic I had for our discussion today was one of the themes that really inspired me from Summer Summit, something in the ESL track that spoke to me, and we had discussed as a program to an extent, but something that I'd love to hear from the rest of you on, and that is about building community and focusing on the social environment of learning. And it was shared in our session on trauma-informed care and socio-emotional learning for adult English learners. And I think a research point that will apply to other types of learners in our area. Adult learners need structured opportunities, was a statement made, to both make connections with each other and to share about their lives and their experiences. And the really interesting data point shared was that if no social connections are made within the first 3 weeks, that learner is likely to not persist, or is unlikely to persist. So saying that again, if no social connections are made within the first 3 weeks of attending instruction, it's unlikely for that person to persist in their learning. And as we look in the year ahead and beyond to the topic of student retention, this was something that really intrigued me. And we were given a few examples of activities that are structured that help learners to build connection with each other. A find someone who activity could be used with any learner, but in English language instruction, we tend to use that. It's a little bit more advanced. but it involves students talking in a small group. For example, in a breakout room, if you're teaching virtual classes, and they have to find someone who used to was a student in their native country, or find someone who, you fill in the blank, you have some set examples, and it's a mingling activity in which students need to use the English language in order to complete the activity. Four Corners activity is another one that was mentioned, where students can sort themselves in a physical space. Not totally sure how we translate that to virtual, but we have some creative people in this group that maybe have done that. In a physical space, you would have a certain topic or word in each corner of the room, or a picture, and students identify with which one they like the most or which one describes them. Language experience approach being one where students share from their own experience to create a story or a text. And there are many creative activities that we do as a follow-up to teach literacy skills with the LEA approach. And one that I was inspired by David to share was how we welcome new students. And I really appreciated how David and other teachers talk about how, when they have a new student join the class, how they connect them with the other students, and how they introduce them, how the students ritually will introduce themselves to that new person. So my question for us is, how are we providing across the state those structured opportunities for learners to connect with each other and discuss their own lives and experiences?
Well, since Laura mentioned me, I'll speak up about that. And so many of these things I just do without thinking, because I've done them for so long. And Diana mentioned that to me yesterday while during my class. You probably do this without thinking. Yeah, probably. But yes, with welcoming students, it's not, I mean, I'll give a generic welcome to class. Students, we have a new classmate. Introduce yourself and welcome them. And it's gotten to the point where my students aren't just the generic basic, my name is, I'm from so. They will expand upon it and say, welcome, well, we are a family here, just, welcome to our family, and we all help each other here and support each other. So that continues with the normal students. The new student will introduce him or herself. And after that, I open it up again to the class. Students, do you have more questions for your new classmates? And always, students have more questions for that new student. During class, it's the students who are helping each other when they don't understand something. The student says, I don't understand, I don't know. Say, students, can someone help? In English. Sometimes they need that translation. So I have a community of students who are very supportive of each other. I make it a safe place to express themselves. Short story, just last week, I had these two new students, like level 0, reading the temperature. Husband is helping his wife with some pronunciation with it. All the other students are just listening. And the student who's just beginning to learn to read reads the part sunny, and partly cloudy. Takes a few tries. But again, it's a open space. Express your thoughts. So I have a student from Mexico, Judith. It's like, teacher, I just want to say something. It's just like, I'm very proud. I'm very proud of them. They're not my parents, but I feel very proud. And she was tearing up at that point. I was tearing up. And then I asked one of my go-to translators, oh, can you translate for me? Like, oops. She was tearing up. But yeah, so that's a glimpse of what my classroom and my students are like.
David, you're going to make me tear up too. That's really special when you have that kind of atmosphere in a class where students see their own family in the other students. Like, that's not my mom or dad, but it could be. Those aren't my grandparents, but they could be. It's not my sister or brother, but they have a similar story and experience. So I'm proud of you for fostering such great rapport with your online students. Thank you for sharing. I'm sure others here can relate to how challenging it can be for true beginners when they enter either an in-person or an online classroom. And they try their very hardest, and I love that our learners support each other. So that is truly an example of a positive social environment in the classroom. Are there others who have examples that they'd like to share? How do you facilitate that? What are some activities and approaches that you use that we can celebrate and learn from?
I was just going to share that Danette shared something in the chat about students bringing a problem and sharing it with the classmates, and then other classmates being able to give advice and how to solve that problem. And I've seen that work too in the classroom. The student knows how to help their fellow classmate better than I do, because I haven't had to experience that problem before, but they have the answers. So it's really empowering.
I'll just speak about one more thing I do. And that's the socializing aspect of it. We're just talking about their daily lives, their weekend plans, what they did over the weekend. Sometimes that lasts 10 minutes. Sometimes it's the whole first hour. But it's that genuine conversation, and there's always students who have those follow-up questions, especially those with kids in school and sports and playing instruments and music. There's always that connection. Oh, I have children too. And they ask those follow-up questions. And then they can really share about something important in their lives. And it's not just that structured Burlington lesson or whatever it may be. It's authentic and genuine.
Thanks, David.
I could share a little bit.
Please.
So I'm known to have parties in my class recently. And the reason we have had these parties was originally we started talking, and my students, they're amazing. They're like, oh, where are you from? What kind of food do you eat? Oh, I want to try that food. And it got to be like this huge conversation. And then they said, teacher, can we bring food? Can we share with each other? Can we share our food with each other and learn about each other? And I said, of course. And so that's how we ended up having the parties. So we've had crepes from Gabon, we've had pupusas, we've had curtido, we've had Bariniki, we've had, I don't know what kind of foods we've had. But they wanted so much to share their cultures with each other because we were learning about each other. It's amazing what they can do. So that's all I have right now.
That's great. Thank you, Heather.
Yeah, to follow up on that, about sharing about each other's culture. Yeah, just last week, student from Mexico going to a quinceañera. So I had her talk about that, and I pulled up pictures, and she talked about that. Now it happened over the weekend. So she talked about before the weekend, and then Monday again, and about how her 3-year-old boy staying up very late, till like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. And then we learned the word exhausted. So it's a vocabulary building as well.
I love that, David. Amy?
I can add a little more. Sorry.
That's okay.
So because my students have been able to learn so much about each other, on their own, they started a group text, which includes the teacher. They have been able to meet outside of the classroom. Some of the students have had like some problems, and they've been helping each other with those problems, including like some depression issues. And it's just, they have been really able to be involved with each other's lives, it's cool what they've been doing. So anyway, the classroom has extended to outside the classroom now. So
That's a really special class, Heather. I went to visit once, and I think I had a survey. I wanted their input on needs. And I remember one of your students, when the discussion went to childcare and how there are mothers that have a hard time attending classes because of needs for childcare. And one of your students just was like, well, we have to help each other. We have to get together and support the community. They're very action oriented and really compassionate group of students. And I think that's a common thread among our classrooms, that they're compassionate about each other, and they seem to really appreciate the opportunities, David and Heather and others, that you're giving them to support each other, and to, like Diana said, and Danette, thank you for sharing that about solving problems together, that they may as a collective have much better solutions than we would as the adult education instructor. I appreciate everybody sharing your thoughts today. And thank you for taking a few minutes today to reflect on Summer Summit, the things that we learned and experienced together. A huge thanks to the Department of Labor and Regulation, John, Kim, Becky, for us making this possible. And I'm grateful to be a part of it in a small way. And a huge thanks to all of you, because that's what makes the conference so meaningful each year, is that we get to experience it together and learn together. So thank you for sharing your input. Any comments from Kim, Becky, or John?
No, thank you, Laura.
Well
Really.
said, Laura. Thank you.
Yeah.
So
See you all-
until next month,
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
thanks everybody. Have a great
Enjoy
day.
the autumn and turning of the leaves.